My name's Nathan Garner. I'm the project manager and one of the tech support team leaders here at Dynamic CCTV. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the TP-Link range that we sell here at Dynamic, covering some of the basics of the PoE switches, when to use them in different kind of scenarios, and we'll also be touching on some of the fiber modules, and we'll also cover some of the new TP-Link range of automation that's now available. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A section, and at the end of the webinar we'll go through those, or you can drop me an email. My contact details are on screen there. So who are TP-Link? They're one of the top providers of switches and Wi-Fi in the world. They are rated as #1 Wi-Fi provider in the world for the 9th consecutive year. They were founded in 1996 and they're now selling to over 170 countries with a rich selection of different products that are available from TP-Link, which you can purchase from ourselves here at Dynamic CCTV. So with the products themselves, they do have UK technical support with a dedicated pre-sales team for any assistance on specifying the right equipment, what's needed on the job. There's lifetime warranty on business products and 3 years warranty on the Soho lines as well. And Dynamic are a value distribution partner with TP-Link, with a large stock holding of the TP-Link ranges that are available as well. So what we're just going to go through is the PoE basics, just kind of an introduction to PoE. So you have your data transmitting over cable from your device to and from your switch, as well as an electrical current to power that endpoint device as well. So there's a few different scenarios generally for CCTV applications. We power in IP cameras from the actual switches, but you can also use them to power VoIP phones, wireless access points, anything like that with PoE. And there is a lot of different advantages. Instead of needing to have a local power supply, which you did need to for kind of older analog systems and the likes, with PoE, both the data and power is transmitted over your Cat5 cable between your switch and your endpoint device. There's many different standards when it comes to PoE, and one of the newest ones now is 802.3bt, which is a higher power demand, which is up to 90 watts in some cases for the newer higher end range of the PEZs that are available from Hikvision, which do utilize that protocol. So here are just a quick look at some of the PoE standards. So PoE power supplies follow 802.3, and then it's AF, AT and BT standards. BT powered is divided into type 3 and type 4, and type 4 being the higher power for the actual system, which is your 90 watts, and your type 3 is 60 watts. So maximum power output for 802.3 AF is 15.4 watts, which is generally fine for most of your standard kind of smaller turret and bullet ranges of cameras. There's also the AT version, which is up to 30 watts, and the BT range is 60 watts and 90 watts on type 3 and type 4, which I will send these slides out so you do have all these tables and everything to hand as well for those. The TP-Link PoE products will do AF and AT. Currently working on the BT range, the 802.3bt, which will be released shortly as well for the solutions. So there's a wide range of different switches that are available, which you can see from the chart that we've got here. So at the very bottom, we've got our basic unmanaged switches, which are your 4, 8, 16, 24 ports, and they also go into the gigabit range on the far right of the table as well. And then you also have the PoE powers down the left hand side, so it makes it easy when selecting switches on which one that you need, whether or not you need gigabit for higher throughput and what power ranges that you need. When it comes to the PoE power ratings, this is the overall PoE budget for the switch, and this isn't per port that's down on the left, is the overall PoE budget for the entire switch there. But this just makes it a lot easier to help select the right switch for the right job. It may be that you're having a switch at an endpoint where you're only going to need 4 cameras, and there's no need for those 4 PoE ports to be gigabit. So you could use 100 meg PoE ports with a gigabit uplink, and that will save a lot of money there and be more cost effective rather than having a gigabit switch right at your endpoint of where your cameras are located. So this is going to cover the 100 meg PoE switch range. So these come with uplink ports on the majority of units, as well as the extend mode, which can give you up to 250 meters long range distance of PoE transmission on Cat5e and higher cable, but it will reduce the actual speed of that port down to 10 megabits a second for them. You also have the high priority modes on the actual switches themselves, which prioritizes that data and is forwarded on with preferential treatment as a system. We do see these used quite a lot with the extend mode, especially on the longer cable runs that you may have. And the PoE ports give enough power for standard IP cameras, and you can also isolate the ports from each other as well to prevent any network broadcast storms, which makes it a lot more secure and a lot more reliable as a system for that. So this is a general kind of topology that we'd usually see when using these types of switches with the smaller 100 meg switches. So this is a 6-port switch, 4 ports for your IP cameras, one to connect to an MVR via the LAN port, and then the other uplink port would be used to connect to a router. And you can see there we've got our PoE to the actual cameras on ports 1 to 4, and then 5 is going into the MVR and number 6 is going to the router. So that's a relatively small system. In that kind of scenario, there wouldn't be a need for a gigabit switch, so it's more cost effective on that kind of solution to use the 100 meg switch for that. It makes it a lot more cost effective for your customers as well for that. This is using the long distance transmission, so this is using fiber with SFP modules between the two switches. So it's 100 meg PoE ports on each of the switches, and then there is an SFP module which can go into the SFP port, and that uses a fiber connection and can give you up to 20 kilometers between your switches using a fiber connection. And that means that you can have on larger scale sites, instead of the need for using wireless, which can drop out, you can use a fiber connection if possible to run the cable run, to connect the two switches over a long distance using the SFP modules with the fiber there in those. So this connection using non-PoE. So for these we've got the TLSF 1009P and the SG121OP for these, which you can see we've got our 7 IP cameras, and on this switch it does support the extend mode. So these ports can be extended up to the 250 meters distance, then have a port connected to the actual NVR, and we also then have the uplink port, which is then connected to the router on site for that. And this is a PoE plus switch, this one we've got here. So these are all the switches that are available with the different PoE budgets, the PoE standards that they meet, and also which ones support the extend modes for the different ports that are available there. And it will also give you the non-PoE ports. This will be your gigabit uplink and also your combo ports, which would be where you'd use your SFP modules for your fiber connections. But this will be included in the slides that I'll send out after the webinar, which will make it easier for you to look at for those there. So now we can move on to the gigabit PoE switches. So these obviously have the high throughput, and it's a gigabit port per connection on the actual switch. It's not just the uplink ports on these ones. So the main benefits of gigabit PoE is obviously the high bandwidth. So if you're using access points on site or security IPCs where they're using on large budgets, on large projects, or if you're daisy chain switches, if you're using a 100 meg switch that doesn't have gigabit uplink ports, or you can't make your backbone gigabit, that can cause a bottleneck. So in some instances, I've seen it before where 24 port PoE switches, but then being plugged into a 100 meg port on a switch, and the actual switch has maxed out that port's bandwidth, and then there's then seen frame drops and stuttering in the actual images of the cameras. So it's making sure that you're using gigabit where it is actually needed and not trying to use it with the 100 meg switches. Also with the gigabit PoE switches, they are the easy smart switch ranges, so you can set up VLANs on them, quality of service. There's also the new PoE Auto Recovery function, which we'll cover on the next slide in a bit more detail. And there's also different levels of management functions. So you can choose from the smart switches, or you can actually go for layer 2 switches that are available in the gigabit PoE range that you can buy from us there. So the PoE Auto Recovery, if the actual PD crashes, the actual PoE switch will automatically restart the PoE power supply for the corresponding port, which basically creates a reboot on the actual camera, which is an automatic detection which you can configure through the web front end of the camera itself. So the way this works is it will send out a ping to detect whether or not the downlink on that actual port has responded, where the device is working normally. If the ping drops after a certain set of time, which you can actually configure, which we'll take a look at some of the actual configuration windows in a second, then that port will actually be rebooted in effect, which makes it a lot easier and automates the recovery procedure and saves someone having to go to physically the switch, unplug that port, and then plug it back in, which is a great feature on the actual managed switch. It makes it a lot more simpler to maintain on the actual system. So these are the actual configuration pages of where PoE Auto Recovery is set. So the actual units will ping the IP address of the device that's actually connected to the port. You can also set a startup delay to specify how long the switch waits before it actually tries to reboot that PD. You can also set the time in which it will actually send the ping packets to the cameras or another IP device that you connect into the switch. So it is configurable to how you want it to run, and also the amount of failures that happen before it will actually trigger that response. So it's kind of how long between the actual ping packets, the failure threshold of those packets, or how many can fail, and then it can then set the actual port to reboot itself to try and bring the actual device back online, which are all broken down in there. And it will also set the number of pings that it will achieve before it reboots, which are all covered on that slide there for you. So this is the range of the Gigabit PoE switches from TP-Link. So you can see on a lot of them we do have higher PoE budgets, especially on the smart and layer 2 switches. So we can get up to 384 watts of PoE power budget, which is on the 24 port and the 48 port Gigabit PoE switches there. You can also see on the unmanaged side of things there isn't the option to have the PoE Auto Recovery function, and that is only available on the Easy Smart switches and also some of the layer 2 switches are available there on the larger side of things for those. So this is a slightly different way to wire the actual fiber side of things. So if you're needing a long cable run between two separate locations and there isn't a fiber SFP module on the actual switch, what you can do is you can use a media converter, which can take your copper cable into the actual media converter for your Cat5, and then it can then give out a fiber connection through an SFP module. You'd then have your fiber cable run the ground or in some ducting. You'd then come back out to your other media converter, which will then convert it back into a copper connection, which can then plug into your switch that doesn't have the SFP modules on there. This makes it a lot more flexible when you're using just standard gigabit switches on the cheaper side of things, or if you're doing long distance connections for cameras, you could use media converters to connect the camera to. So for example, if we had a pole with a PEZ mounted on the actual top of the pole, at the bottom we'd have the PSU to power the camera, and we could then have a media converter that's converting that copper connection from the PEZ into a fiber connection, and then we could have, say for example, 5-kilometer cable run back to the control room via fiber, which is then converted into copper and connected to the standard network switches in the actual control room, which makes it a lot easier, a lot more flexible on those sites where you need the extra longer cable runs, which are beyond the 250 meters of cable run that you can achieve with the extend mode when you're using the copper connections, Cat5 and Cat6 as an example there. So we're just moving on to the home automation side of things. So this is called the 𝐂𝐂𝐓𝐕 smart home range. It's available from TP-Link, which you can speak to us here at Dynamic CCTV for more information. But I just want to cover a couple of the different things that are available from that range from them. So we've got the smart plugs. So these connect directly to your Wi-Fi. You don't actually need hub, which you do for some other home automation products. These will actually connect directly to your Wi-Fi, which you'd use the 𝐂𝐂𝐓𝐕 Smart app on from TP-Link. Once they're added, you can control from anywhere, wherever you are. As long as your phone's got internet connection, you can control those actual plugs. So if you go out, leave the TV on, and you forgot to turn it off, you can go on your mobile phone and actually turn off the TV remotely. You can schedule a timer, so if you're using lamps or anything like that and they're connected to the smart plugs, you can set a schedule on when you want that lamp to come on or anything like that. You can also configure smart actions, so you can link them with other devices and also link them together for group control. These are also compatible with Amazon Alexa, Google Home, so if you want to say Alexa turn lights on, you can do that, or Alexa turn the TV on. You could link those commands up to the Casa Smart range from TP-Link. There's also the Smart Power Strip, so instead of your normal extension, this one's a smart one with 2 USB ports as well as your 3 smart outlets. Same again as the smart plugs. These are added directly to your Wi-Fi using the application on your phone from TP-Link, and this allows you to have 3 power devices connected to the power strip, which can then each be individually controlled through the actual system, which makes it a lot easier. It's a lot more popular as the IoT side of things, and home automation is becoming a lot more popular with customers and clients. And again, these are compatible with the Amazon Alexa and Google Home Assistants, so these will link up to that. And they also have the benefit of the 2 USB ports, so your smart devices such as your phones can connect your USB cable directly into the power strip and charge your phone from there. You don't need to use one of the full power outlets on the actual extension. They've also now launched a range of smart bulbs, so we've got the KL110 and the KL110B. There's a range of the actual units, so these are fully dimmable light bulbs, which originally with some LED light bulbs you couldn't dim them. So it's an E27 and a B22 fitting, and these use 10 watts of power. You get the same benefits of the smart plugs as well as the extension, and so you can control these through the TP-Link app, whether you're at home or if you're remote anywhere in the world. As long as you've got internet connection and the devices are added to your Wi-Fi, you'll be able to control them through the app no matter where you are through there. You can also set schedules, so if you want to come home on a night, the lights already be on, you can set a schedule up for that to automatically turn them on at specific times or turn them off at specific times on the night as well. And you can also manually go in. If you get out of your car and it's dark, you can actually turn on the lights before you actually get into the house, so everything's lit up ready for you. And these also come with a 2-year limited warranty from TP-Link. From those. At the moment, we currently have an offer working with TP-Link. So if you buy any of the 3 switches, the TL-SG342-4P and the TL-SG2452P and the TL-SL2428P switches, you can claim up to £50 in Love to Shop vouchers and when you buy these PoE switches from ourselves here at Dynamic CCTV. And this offer is running up until the end of the year, so it ends on the 31st of December for this. Just wanted to touch on our technical support team. So we have 10 technical support team members that are available to take your calls, and also via email at technical@dynamiccctv.com. And they're a knowledgeable and highly trained staff that we have here with a varying skill set to cover all different types of products that we sell here at Dynamic CCTV. Make sure it follows on our social channels, such as our YouTube channel, which we do post regularly how-to videos and product introductions. We also post all of the recorded versions of our webinars to our YouTube channel. When these slides are sent out, you can also click on the technical update button, and what that will do is take you to a web page where you can sign up to our technical bulletins, which are sent out regularly on any new things that come up with any of our ranges, as well as any of the upcoming webinars as well. So I'll go through onto the Q&As now. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section. I'll cover those through now. Alternatively, you can contact me on the email addresses on screen for those. Nilesh has asked if we sell the SFP connectors. So we do sell the fiber modules. They're available on our website. If you speak to our sales team, we'll be able to get those sent over to you. I will send a link over to you, Nilesh, as well for the SFP modules that we sell on our website. I'll send that over this morning to you. Mark's asked, can the Casa Smart plug be used on an internal network, or does it need to be on the internet? So the Casa range of smart devices, they connect to the TP-Link app. For for the actual unit, so they would need an internet connection for the actual application itself for those. So Nilesh has asked, do the switches come with uplink ports? So depending on the model of switch that you use, some do come with uplink ports and some don't. On the tables themselves, if we go back a few slides, so if we go back to the 100 meg switches, so depending on the ones that you're using, so on the TL-SL1311MP, that does have gigabit uplink ports. It has 2 of them. Some of them have a gigabit copper connection and then a combo port for your SFP modules, or they could have 2 combo ports. Depending on the switch you use, depends if they do have the gigabit uplink ports. But if you look on our website, they should all be listed, whether or not it is gigabit uplink ports or just standard ports on the actual switch. Some of them, if you have, for example, a 8-port gigabit PoE switch, just all 8 ports are gigabit, there isn't an uplink port. You generally find them on the 100 meg switches. On gigabit switches, you generally see SFP modules for a faster backbone for a fiber connection there for those. And I think that's all the questions there. So thank you for joining me today. If you have any further questions, please feel free to get in touch. Our contact details are on screen there. Thank you for joining me for today. Please keep an eye out for the next webinars that will be upcoming. You can see those on our technical support page and then select webinars, and they're all listed on that page there. So thank you, take care, cheers, bye.